Chris, glad to have you on the Big Skinny, my friend. Long time no see.
Yeah, happy to reconnect. It has been over a decade.
Yeah, it's wild, man. That just means you and I are old and everyone else is young, right?
Well, we're staying young at heart,
Yeah,
man. I
listen,
feel
I said this when I sent out the email telling people about today's episode. You had your finger on a strategy and an idea when social media was just taking off called social leverage. You've leveraged that to take a portfolio from about $20,000 to north of $50 million. So no one can argue with your results. Talk to us about just how you see the markets, how you operate in the markets, because people that aren't familiar with your approach, I think it's important for them to hear it.
yes. To be clear, I call it social arbitrage.
Okay.
Okay, but it's essentially observational investing, and it is really simple. It's all about trying to surface change in the world quicker than others, and then trying to connect the dots of that change back to companies and sectors that would be the key beneficiaries or key, I guess you can say, in the other side, companies or sectors to be harmed by that change. And then you make your trade. And
Yeah,
of
and then
course,
how are
it's
you
more.
finding these, right? It wasn't the normal, it wasn't Wall Street reports that you're looking for. It wasn't the Morgan Stanley banker. Where were you finding these data points to connect the
No,
dots on?
no, I surprisingly consume almost zero financial media of any kind. You kind of have to look for alpha in places where others are not spending their time. So as opposed to kind of just being part of the herd. So these days, I guess the last 6 or 7 years, the majority of my alpha comes off of comments on TikTok. It comes in other places as well. It could be Reddit, could be X. Back in the early 2000 teens, it was more on X or Twitter at the time than anything else. But people stopped expressing themselves on X. It's become more of a news
Yeah.
and a politics platform as opposed to like, what are you buying today? What are you doing with your time today? Like, that's not what people discuss on X, but people are really open and passionate and on TikTok, and essentially the entire world unfolds in real time on TikTok if you know where to look. And it's not necessarily just watching videos, but it's about reading the thousands and thousands of comments. So I spend about 4 hours a day consuming what I call conversational data that lives on social media
And then
and is
what's
really
the
just.
trigger points for you, right? So you're spending 4 hours, you're kind of just bathing yourself in what the chatter is in the market among people, real life people that are making decisions, that are driving businesses. When do you start to, like, what are the signs that you go, hey, this might be an investment, the nugget of an investment right here?
Yeah, so it's when you come across something. It could be a trend, it could be something. It doesn't have to be like a consumer trend. It could be a shift in technology, something that's happening with the weather. It could be something that's happening in politics. It could be any change that you say, you know what, that change is going to be really impactful to this company or set of companies, either in a positive or negative way. And the real difference maker is when other people have not yet fully acknowledge that change as being real for one reason or another. First of all, you have to make sure the change is a needle mover for the company, right?
Right,
Because
right.
it can't be a monstrously big company and a tiny little change is going to impact, maybe 1/10 of 1% of their sales. It has to be meaningful. So when you find something that has potential to be meaningful in terms of to a company's revenue or a company's cost or just the perception of a company, and it's not fully acknowledged by other investors, and there are not other things happening at the company that are meaningfully more important than the thing that you surfaced, well, then you have the makings of what I call a social arb trade. And this is something I've been doing now for about 17 years. And now there's not just me, there's like a whole world of
Yeah,
people. It's
you
crazy.
got you
Like
got
they,
Skip Bayless, who's a fan too. He says you're the GOAT, so he must have traded alongside you in some here. Just
Oh my
to
goodness, I had no idea. Like it's wild to me how often I see people in communities like surfacing that talk about this type of trading, and that was always my dream. It's like not for me to control it or to own it,
yeah,
but just I just love that this is something that anyone can do. You don't have to be financially pedigreed in any capacity. You don't have to be kind of a math whiz. It's not technical trading. It doesn't have to consume your whole life. It's something you could do like off hours. You could do it for
Yeah.
fun. You could just you learn to retrain your brain to observe the world differently, to pay attention, and to connect dots. That's
Yeah.
really what it's all
Look,
about.
it's situational awareness that they use in the military sense and law enforcement, but for the markets, and I think you put a finger on it, like it doesn't have to consume you like the world says Wall Street, you have to be an MIT math grad whiz. Like, man, you can be the dumbest dumb money around, but have the greatest common sense and be able to sense this stuff and profit alongside you and these
Yeah, and
ideas.
we call ourselves, our YouTube show is called Dumb Money
I
Live,
love it.
and we call ourselves Dumb Money only because that's the term that people have used against us for so long, and we wear it as a badge. Like technically, we are considered dumb money, but yet I'm going on, I want to say my 18th year of audited portfolio track record where I'm averaging somewhere between 70 and 80% annualized over the past 17, 18
So,
years now. And it's
dude,
something
that is insane because
I,
I came out of the traditional world and to democratize access to information, good ideas, 70 to 80% annualized over 18 years. Even if we layered in a standard hedge fund fee of 2 and 20 on that, you're still going to be the top performing hedge fund manager of all time, up there with the greats. And they would
I
say that's
always
not
want,
possible.
I always want to put a disclaimer out there because I am friends with a lot of hedge fund guys, and like I don't manage billions of dollars, and what they do is inherently more difficult to do when you're dealing with that type of size.
Of course.
The portfolio that I manage is 8 figures, not 9 and 10 figures. So it is somewhat easier for me to do what I do.
Yeah, but
But listen,
you
I'm
got to be
proud of it.
proud of it, man, because Buffett had the quote like, look, I know, no, in fact, I can guarantee you that I would double your money every year if I was only managing $1 million or $2 million, because he knows that he can find arbitrage opportunities with that size and move around quickly. So you've done it. I mean, not just once or twice, but 18 years in a row, which is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you too, because I'm part of that skeptic class on humanoid robots, right? I believe it's real. I definitely think it's here. I've always been an early adopter of tech. But when I see Morgan Stanley put out a chart that says like, oh, by 2050, it's going to be generating $5 trillion worth of revenue, but next to none for the next few years, I'm like, all right, if I'm early, that means I'm going to be wrong. So it's a timing issue for me. So what got you over the hump to say the weight's not going to suck like we have here in our chart, that it's actually going to be a profitable weight? And where are you playing it mostly? Is it with Tesla? Is it with an ETF? Like, give me your whole humanoid robot transformation or conversion story.
Yeah, first of all, like I think it'd be odd if you weren't a skeptic, unless you've kind of seen what someone like myself has seen and has had the type of fortune and exposure that I've had to the industry sector. I don't blame you at all for being a skeptic. I was a skeptic. I met one of the founding teams of Humanoids 7.5 years ago,
Oh wow.
and year after year, I refused to invest in the company because I was a skeptic. Looking back, how lucky was I that I just happened to cross paths with these kids so long ago that when it became real, I just happened to be in the right place, right time. I think that Morgan Stanley report is like actually super conservative in the long run. Like I have really, I have opinions here that are not in line with some of the other people in the sector. I am way more conservative in the short run
Okay.
than almost anyone in this sector is. Um, I'm over 500 hours of deep research into the humanoid sector. I've engaged with most of the humanoid companies on Earth, either directly or through someone in my close network who has been closely evaluating them and has been on the inside. I have, probably more alpha on the sector than anyone in the finance industry. So, I can't say everything that I know.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Uh, all,
understand
all,
that.
all, all I can say is that I engage with roboticists globally nearly on a daily basis now.
So would you
Most
ever
of the
thought you would
world's
say that 5 years ago, 10 years ago? I'm engaging with
no,
roboticists.
it's like almost half of my life and has been for about 2 years. And I kind of I fell into it again as a skeptic, just like you. I will tell you this, it is extraordinarily real, but most of the information that's being floated around in financial circles is just flat out wrong, misunderstood.
Yeah.
2 years ago when I started talking about this, nobody believed me. Now everybody has become way too aggressive on their timelines, unrealistic, and just patently wrong with what they think is real and not real. And like I'm very close with all, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to say all, many of the largest investors globally in this space that are invested privately have become my friends now. And listen, everybody has their text chains. I'm on a text chain with all, and we're sharing alpha. We're sharing
Yeah,
intel
yeah.
falls daily, daily.
This is awesome
Um,
because now you have a new friend group when the robots take over all the rest of the world.
yes,
But
yeah.
hey, so
So I'll
how do
tell.
you play this now? How do you balance this? So you're definitely more constructive on timing. Any stocks that, I mean, obviously I saw you think Tesla could generate $10 trillion worth of value eventually from this trend, but how do you play it from a stock trend? Because I look at some of the new humanoid robot ETFs and they got a lot of exposure in international companies, right? Japanese mostly robotics companies, some Chinese companies, which are not easy for US investors to get access to. Are you playing it public stocks, private
Mm,
investments? I'm assuming you're
yeah.
spreading the bets
I,
around some names.
I don't love any of the ETFs as someone that understands the space really well.
Yeah.
There are I mean this could be a multi-hour if not multi-day conversation. But I'll try to be effective and stay at a high level. I'll just say this, there are an enormous number of humanoid labs around the world and very few companies, like actually almost none. Like I can count them on less than one hand how many real companies in the world in this space. So there's really only one way for retail investors to invest in one of those humanoid companies.
Don't say it because
And
you're
it
going to
would
say
it
Tesla and it's going to
well,
violate
well,
everything in
it
me.
it would be Tesla, and ironically, I'm not invested in Tesla yet for their humanoid program. I've been getting a lot of heat because for a long time, people have been asking me, "Hey, I wrote that tweet thread on at Chris Camillo on Twitter, like in late 23. I think I posted it in January of 24, and it was about how the Optimus sector of Tesla could be valued at 10 trillion by end of 2030 by having a million other humanoids in
Yeah.
circulation for commercial and industrial work. I still feel that that's a possibility, but the Optimus program is not what people think. It's not doing as well as people think. I've known for about 7 or 8 months that they were not where they wanted to be.
Yeah.
I
Which is
think they've
typical
made some.
Elon, right? Overpromise and then backfill to deliver,
I
hopefully in a reasonable time
I
frame.
I think Elon, like a lot of people know, he's been spread thin, but he
Yeah.
he still has to kind of say what he needs to say to keep people excited. I don't think Elon even fully had a grasp of what was happening at Optimus. And it's so funny because like a lot of the stuff I've been saying for the past 6 months privately to people that, hey, no, Optimus is not making 10,000 bots this year. I don't think they'll even hit that 5,000
Yeah.
that they wanted to hit. And it's because it's not ready to scale. That Optimus was never ready to scale. As it's come out over the last few weeks, there's a number of issues. But you know what? The craziest thing is, none of this should be a surprise. I keep telling people we are a developmental stage sector right now.
Yeah,
We're not
absolutely.
a scaling, this is not a sector to scale today. It never was. Certain CEOs are going to say what certain CEOs need to say for the reasons they need to say it. But
It's
if
the
you
cost
want
of
to know,
capital, Chris. We need to not dilute
I
ourselves crazily. Yeah.
I know, but like, listen, from a guy who's on the deep inside here, I'm telling everyone, this sector is not even remotely ready to scale yet. Okay, does it mean that some companies won't attempt to scale for a number of reasons? They might still attempt to scale, but we're not there yet. And when you see a company like Tesla with the issues they're having with Optimus, all of this is to be expected. I don't
Yeah.
see any of it as like a huge negative for Tesla long term. They're one of three companies that I think are meaningfully real right now. All right, in the space, and they have more resources and more money than anyone.
Yeah.
So I feel that Tesla is still in the pole position to be in the leadership here of humanoids over the next decade to decade and a half, which is what actually matters. We have a lot of problems to solve with humanoids. By the way, when you say you're skeptical, can you tell me the top one or two reasons why you're skeptical? Because I'm sure a lot of the people watching share that concern, and I would like to address it.
Yeah, no,
Again,
man.
because a lot of people just don't get the sector. They don't
Yeah.
understand what's actually
Flipping the
happening.
script on the interviewer, you're interviewing me. I love it, man. True to form. So look, I would say this. I've been early on robotics, industrial robotics. So like symbiotic cognition, different like vision technology and factory automation, really looking at that. So I believe in the capabilities. So I'm skeptical that like if we can bring up the chart eventually here, the whole humanoid robot stack, it's a convergence of all these technologies and an integration that I just don't think technologically we're there yet, that we haven't connected all the, for lack of a better term, the middleware to make this all function seamlessly where it can scale. So it's, for me, we're not there just yet, but we're getting closer. And the faster the AI trend ramps up, the more adept we're gonna be to connect all this and have the interconnectivity. That's the biggest thing. And then also price point, right? So like, I think, not a perfect analogy, but 3D printing, the first 3D printers were like 150 grand. And then you saw very quickly, we drove that price down to like sub 1,000, which leads to adoption. So for me, it's a cost curve and then just the technology innovation curve. So not yet there. So those are my big objections.
Okay, so like I think that's really fair. If you say we're not there yet, what is your level of confidence that we could be approaching there in the early 2030s for the bipedal humanoids?
Yeah, no, I would say that I don't foresee that there's any reason we couldn't get there by the early 2030s, right?
Yeah, so and by the way, I didn't mean to skip your last question. The way that I am playing it, I'm invested across a handful of companies that are all private that touch the sector. Two of them are actual bipedal humanoid companies, Apptronic and Figure AI. They're private,
Yep.
right? Obviously, there are ways to trade private shares for retail investors these days, but it's a little more difficult than trading a publicly traded company. um the middleware, right? And some of the issues that we're having with dexterity of hands, with the completion rate of tasks, with the uptime of the bots, with the durability of the bots to be economically feasible. You really need these bots to have like a 3 to 5 year durability.
Yeah.
There are a number of things that have to fall in line. I will tell you this. We are not there yet on any of those things, but there is an engineering sightline to getting there in the very near future.
Yeah, I
So,
think you said a key point there. It's an engineering sightline. For me, it's not an innovation issue, it's an engineering issue, right? These are solvable problems, which just means how can you estimate the timeline, right? So, yeah.
yes, I thought what you were going to say in not believing in the sector is that why humanoids, why bipedal, why not precision robotics, which is where we've been the last 50 years. And I think that's an area where people just fully don't understand the market, right? So when we think about automation, when we think about what Amazon is doing and other bleeding edge companies, um, precision robotics, uh, it's hard to envision a near future in the next 25, 30 years where precision robotics can accommodate more than 5% of the automation companies desire.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is anytime you have precision robotics, the workflow and the operations have to kind of revolve around the robot itself, right?
Right. It's
Where
not a natural where you have to redesign the whole implementation. I mean, we got a question here from Prince Hakeem, who I know well. He's Prince A. There's not a Prince B. He wants to know Amazon, Walmart, heavy in logistics, maybe humanoid robots. I mean, that makes headlines. Amazon's almost got more, robots than employees. Do you see these industrial powerhouses at the front line of the humanoid robot trend, or do you just see them in the background really helping develop the infrastructure to make the humanoids possible. Because if we look at the trend, right, industrial robots, if you look at this chart here, have scaled pretty impressively with 500,000 deployments worldwide, where humanoid robots really are just in the infancy. So is it
The
is it like the
scaling of
defense sector brings us
industrial,
into the new, like the industrial guys bring us, humanoid robots into existence, but it's
they're
different
two
players?
complete they're two completely different industries. And
Yeah.
the scaling that you've seen with industrial robots are nothing compared to what you will eventually see with generalized robots when you have something that's relatively close to a single SKU or two or three SKUs that is being refined over many years.
Yeah.
And you could actually have millions, hundreds of millions, billions of the infinite labor machine that could essentially do anything. There's a sight line into us having that machine ready and scalable now. So it's two completely different industries.
Yeah.
Amazon is going to explore their own generalized robot. They're behind. They're not a bleeding edge uh, company in this space today, but perhaps one day they will. Apple's getting in this market. OpenAI is getting in this market. Meta is getting in this market. Obviously, Tesla is already in it with Optimus. Essentially, all of big tech over the course of the next 20 years, I strongly believe will evolve into becoming hardware companies,
Yeah.
unlike we've seen in the past, because the embodiment of artificial intelligence, the hundreds of billions of dollars that these companies are currently investing in in essentially the models, right? The intelligence need to be monetized. And there are a handful of ways to monetize these investments. And one of the biggest ways to monetize these investments is through the embodiment of
Yeah,
this
it's a good
intelligence.
point. I mean, they're developing
Yep.
the brains first, and then they've got to put it into a body to monetize that.
That's exactly correct, but also understand that physical labor is somewhere between a third and 50% of global GDP. Why? Like, why is it so big, such a big part of global GDP? And that's because, most of the world's problems and functions in manufacturing and logistics and warehousing and it's all revolves around human workflow
Yeah.
today. And actually changing that takes many, many, many decades and a massive amount of money. And it's just not something that is going to happen quickly at all. So if you think about this over the next few decades, we have to solve these problems with existing infrastructure.
Yeah,
And the
so
way to do
that's the
that,
bottleneck is the infrastructure, right? Because you got to rip up basically like you're going to change the mode of transportation from railroads to flying or cars to flying cars. It's just you can't do
no,
it overnight. It's not
no,
possible.
no. And so we are going to start with a generalized bot that is relatively similar to the existing physical workforce, which happens to have two legs and two arms and a head. And it will be working with humans. I'll say something because I know a lot of people, this is a touchy subject. I can say with absolute confidence that the majority of early customers, and it's essentially all major incumbents of physical labor, are the reason why they're excited about this space is not to replace humans. They want these, believe it or not, they want these devices to help grow and expand and to have certainty around that expansion of industry over the next 2 to 3 decades. The goal is to reposition the humans that they have to be more productive. So rather than having someone spend a 40-year career moving a piece of sheet metal from 1 foot behind them to 3 feet, in front of them,
Yeah, shoot me right
they
now
would
if that
be
was my
doing,
life. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they'll be doing something slightly more complex and interesting, but we would have bots to do the repetitive work,
Yeah.
right? So there's just an enormous amount of demand in the hundreds of millions of humans that we are going to fall short between 2030 and 2035. So what is pushing all this demand is the shortage, right? It's
So just
not the
you're talking about the
replacement of
aging
humans.
population. We're not going to have an able-bodied workforce in a lot of these developed nations to be able to perform these manufacturing tasks.
It's a combination of two things. It's an aging workforce, but also shifting demographics of humans that have a desire to do these jobs anymore. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's a global problem that needs to get resolved. And even though these robots are very expensive, somewhere between $1 and $200,000 to hand build today, there is certainly a sight line. It's debatable, but there's a sight line that takes them somewhere down between $50 and $80,000 a bot. Now you hear Elon saying 20K, 25K once we get into the millions. It's certainly possible, and I think we'll get there in time, but we don't necessarily need to, because we will have bots that are mass manufacturable within single digit years at a 50 to 80K price tag, that have a 5-year timeline. And the value of these bots, that ranges, but the value of these bots will be somewhere between 100 and 300K a year of human equivalent value. So if you just kind of crunch those numbers, we have an industry sector that has demand today, or in the short digit years, of hundreds of millions of bots on an annualized basis, that will have something close to software margins.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've never seen an industry this large. And unlike software, there's a pretty significant moat for those companies that have the capacity to scale, because there's not just a moat in terms of the software, the brain, the software stack. Most people underappreciate how massively complex the software stack is outside of the AI brain,
Right.
right? That's controlling the bot. And you have to have fleet management. I mean, there's just so much involved.
Which is the reason why it's going to take the time for it to roll out. So I'm not.
Boom. Exactly.
I'm
You just
late, but
nailed
not
it.
really late, because there's so much more runway here for the forces that need to come into work, and the replacement of infrastructure and the coordination of resources for it to play out.
So the bottleneck here, the ultimate moat and the value creation, is in the last mile.
Yeah.
So the company that has the capacity to actually deploy, starting with 2 robots, growing to 200 to 2,000 to 20,000 over time, that is an incredibly difficult problem. And you can't just be a lab. You have to have thousands of employees. You have to have years of strategizing and synthesizing onboarding strategies with these incumbent companies like Walmart, right, FedEx, and like Coca-Cola. This is a difficult problem to solve, and you need to solve it with hardware, with software, with artificial intelligence, and also just with massive amounts of human implementation and strategy. So that's what when I tell you that there are many labs and many YouTube videos with cool robots, but a very tiny number of companies that are doing the unsexy work behind the scenes to actually be able to facilitate the onboarding of robots, not next year or in 2 years, but in 2028, 29, 30, and well beyond. Okay. And those companies are going to be really exciting. And then when you think about the fact that big tech wants to get in on this game in a very big way, again, not necessarily tomorrow, but over the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot of value. I mean, you think it's interesting how Zuck is making billion-dollar pay packages for like an AI scientist?
He's going all in. He's playing No Limit Texas Hold'em for a second time with this pot. So I mean, like,
let me
more
just
so
tell
in
you,
the metaverse.
let me say this. If you think it's hard to find an outstanding AI scientist, do you know how hard it is to find a bleeding edge, generalized robotics humanoid
It's easy, man.
scientist?
I'm going to steal your phone. They're on your text thread, man. You're in your group chat.
Yeah, I mean, I engage with them. I mean, these guys, give it a few years, you're going to see something happen with embodied AI that is very similar to, not even more impressive to, what we've seen with the large language foundation models out there. So this is like the next thing that's going to happen. And it's not just guys like Elon and myself saying this. It's Jensen at NVIDIA, right? Like it's people that they really. This is not like some out there thesis anymore, and Wall Street is always slow to kind of acknowledge things that are this big of a shift.
Right.
It is coming. I've invested a lot in this sector privately, and
let's leave
I'm
it
prepared
there.
to invest a lot publicly too.
Yeah, no, let's leave it there, because you were not wrong. We could talk for hours about this. And what I've taken away from this conversation is I'm not too late. There's a lot of development that needs to be done. We should probably touch base with you since you've spent the man hours. I mean, 500 plus hours of deep dive research. You got a finger on the pulse. I'd love to have you back as key developments happen in the space, as maybe some of these names like Aptronic and Figure AI make their way towards the public markets, perhaps, if you're game for it, man. Always appreciate your insights.
It's going to be a fun few years ahead for embodied AI, robotics, humanoids. We are barely scratching the surface. The only thing I would warn people of is keep your expectations in check for timelines. Because what you think is going to happen the next 12 to 18 months probably won't happen, but what you think is going to happen in 10 years is likely to be way bigger than you could ever imagine.
Love it. Well said. Couldn't articulate it any better. Appreciate your time and your insights, Chris. Looking forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, guys.